the miracle-like nature of our intimate partners to reawaken all of that, because all of our wounds are ultimately, they're attachment wounds. They're wounds around love. If we can just say all wounds, if we sort of take them back to the core, are wounds around love. And so this is where to really, to communicate directly with your partner that I want to use this relationship as really as my as path. And I think you're going to have to be very clear with this person about needing to spend time alone, even in the middle of a conversation, to say, look, this is starting to bring about that sense of dysregulation, that fear, that anxiety, and I need to take a break right now. And to really let him or her know that you'll be back, in a couple hours, in an hour or so, and to really go sit with yourself, right? And to ask, what is it that's arising in this moment that really needs to be held? And what is it about? Because once you allow this person to matter to you, which I'm sure you've done, but that's the dividing line for me. Once we allow another person to matter to us, that opens up those floodgates, that opens up those potential lived embodied experiences of abandonment on the one hand, right? And some sort of fusion, some sort of engulfment, impingement on the other. I'm either going to be abandoned or I'm going to be swallowed up by this relationship, by this other person. I'm going to lose my sense of self. Those are the two experiences that many of us had as young children, as our little brains and nervous systems were developing. And if you grew up in an environment that many of us did, where there wasn't really an adequate holding environment, meaning what trauma is from this perspective, it's emotional pain, somatic pain that isn't able to find a relational home in which it can be held. That's what trauma is that it's a delinking experience where instead of reassociation, instead of linking together body and mind, it's a splitting of body and mind, right? It's a pulling together, it's a dissociative experience. And so if when you allow this person to matter and when you step into that crucible, you are inviting all of that unhealed material that was never able to be processed or metabolized earlier in your life. You're allowing that back into your conscious experience, because often on our own or in, certain ways, we can keep that experience out of our conscious awareness, which is very intelligent at times and very adaptive. But here you are, and there's a longing that I just feel with you, and that you really want to both be in a healthy, intimate, nourishing relationship and all that has to offer. And you want to take care of yourself. You don't want to completely fall apart. And, how do you bring all this together? And so I think it's slowly to really just to what is that feeling state? What is that one feeling state that you'll do just about anything to avoid, to get out of, or that seems overwhelming? That when you're in your relationship, what is it that you're asked when your partner acts in a certain way or says a certain thing or doesn't show up on time or doesn't see you the way you want to be seen, which is just the nature of intimate relationship, by the way. What is that one feeling state I can almost just feel it right now. It's a very young part of you, that fear, but to begin to invite that part of you into a dialogue, to really ask her, what is it that she's so afraid of, and what does she need from you? And to begin to offer that holding environment for her. Because until you tend to all of that feeling and emotion that your partner is so skillfully able to evoke in you, you're not obviously going to be able to fully participate in the relationship. And that would make sense. You don't want to open your heart in what feels like a war zone. I mean, you can't do that. So I think, I don't know if you are able to be in therapy with someone, because first of all, it's just very difficult to do this kind of work on our own. I know that's sometimes an unpopular thing to say, but again, especially from the perspective of the nervous system and the body, because what happens is that as a little girl, when you had these feelings of fear, of pain, and there was no home in which they could be held, what happens is they just get sent out of your conscious awareness down into your body in certain parts of your subcortical brain, and they're held there, and they're just ready and able to be evoked, to be awakened anytime that that relational material comes back into the field. And so it's a matter of just going really slow and sitting with yourself, and ideally with someone else, who can, and you have to go slow and you have to respect and honor that this is too much, right? Because we have to stay inside of our window of tolerance. That's the only place from which integration can occur. You're never going to be able to sort of access those, because what it just feels like, I can almost just feel it just looking at you and being with you, that little one is so, she's, just to use that imagery, that metaphor, she's so close, like she's knocking on the door, like she asking that question, like, is it safe yet, knowing that it might not feel safe, but is it safe yet, and how can you actually provide that safety to her? What can you do, to really listen to her, to open up a dialogue with her, to feel her, because she doesn't respond to your insight, to your clarity, to your practices. What she wants is your heart and your presence, and she's longing, like, can I feel safe again? Will you be here for me? Will you take care of me? And so when this material is evoked, if assuming you want to stay in the relationship, right? Now, if you want to leave the relationship, that's a different kind of conversation. But if you want to stay in the relationship, there's no overt sort of abuse, neglect, violence. I'm just assuming that's not what's going on. But if you want to stay in the relationship, and I'm going to use this relationship as path, then it requires a real shift into, it's a path of the heart at that point. It's not a path of insight, not a path of clarity, but it's a path of going very slowly and just asking yourself, what is it? I wonder what it is right now, in my embodied experience that I'm trying to get out of, that I really just don't want to be in contact with. And that's going to be the doorway. Some abandonment, some sense that you're going to get left behind, that you're going to get smothered, that you're going to get enveloped in something. And to just communicate as clearly as you can with your partner, like, I'm aware that when you say this, do this, don't do this, don't say this, that I'm flooded with this feeling, this emotion. And I'm not, to see your partner not necessarily as the cause of that, right? But as a trigger of it, for sure. And to differentiate cause and trigger, assuming there's no actual violence and neglect happening, but to use that opportunity, because healing can only happen when that material is evoked and awakened in our immediate embodied experience. And then to meet it in a new way, to give that little girl what she was never able to receive, which is some form of presence, of love, of understanding, and to really listen to her and to take what she tells you very seriously about what she's worried about, what she's concerned about. And so those are just a few of my thoughts.